morning and welcome to everyone that joined today's webinar on simplifying the challenges of modern ITSM. My name is Tatiana Olak and I'm a marketing executive here in Hornbill. I'm joined today by my colleague Steve Boardman, Hornbill's product specialist, and Abdi Hamisi, our sales manager. Just to inform you, delegate audio will be muted during the presentation to help facilitate flow and timekeeping. However, if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the GoToMeeting question facility on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll collate the questions and answer them either during the presentation or after the presentation. Thank you very much for joining, and I will now pass you over to Abdi.
Thanks, Tatiana. And just to reiterate what Tatiana was saying there, we're going to spend probably 10 minutes or so just giving you a bit of information around the challenges as we see them around modern ITSM, talk a little bit about the solution we're going to show you today, which is Hornbill Service Manager, and then I'm going to hand over to Steve, who's going to take you through a 30-odd minute presentation of the solution, and we'll come back at the end with some questions as we go. So do ask questions as they occur to you. So in terms of today's webinar, let's get underway. And as Tatiana said, my name's Abdi. I'm the sales manager here at Hornbill. And what I wanted to do is just start off by positioning really the challenges as we see them as a vendor, going out speaking to you as prospects and customers on a regular basis, and just to look at how we've tried to address those as part of our move to put this new solution, Hornbill Service Manager, into the marketplace. So I want to introduce you to Graham and Sonia, and really the idea of these two personas really is to reflect the types of people that we typically end up working with in respect to service management projects and upgrades and so forth. So there's the service desk manager, service delivery manager type role, and there's the analysts, the people that we meet typically in our engagements. Obviously we engage with other people during the course of our engagements, but for the most part these are the two personalities or types of roles that we end up speaking to primarily. So today's presentation is really coming at this from the perspective of the challenges that these types of individuals experience, and looking at how we hopefully can show you a way of addressing those going forwards with Hornbill. So just to kind of give you the high-level challenges here, we've summarized these as upgrades, cost of ownership, complexity, usability and customization. Those are the things that people typically talk to us. Upgrades are pretty self-explanatory. Customers are stuck on a particular version. They've ended up in a situation where they can't upgrade, or the upgrade is cost prohibitive, and there's a reason that they're going out to market. Cost of ownership stands to reason. Complexity is around things like process design, process management, the ability to generate reporting, all of those kind of areas. Usability is around intuitiveness, and customization is you painted yourself into a corner potentially with your current tool. You've had to make changes to it in order to make it work for you, but that's now left you in a position where you're either unable to upgrade, or the cost of upgrading includes redoing those customizations. So these are kind of challenges that we hear about on a regular basis. So just to kind of look at those in sort of perspective with regards to those personas, as a service delivery manager, we've just mentioned there about upgrades, but this is a really big issue that we see when we're out talking to customers and prospects. The whole concept of upgrades, you spend a lot of your time, probably 80% of your time as an IT department, working on keeping the lights on, upgrading, patching, fixing, basically maintenance to keep your applications up and running, whether that's your service management tool or other. But specifically in the service management arena, we find that upgrades is a major challenge for people, and one of the main reasons that people end up going back to market, because they've got to a point where the next upgrade on their current solution maybe is cost prohibitive, maybe is difficult because of customizations, and that becomes a challenge. So that's a key thing that we see. I touched on customizations again, so just to restate that fact, obviously customizations are always required. People need to tailor the tool to meet your requirements. So you're not going to find a tool that just simply works out the box for you entirely. You're always going to need to add fields, impose your process, all of that kind of stuff into your system. So the idea that a customization then needs to be reapplied at the point where you have to upgrade starts to pose challenges, and that's a common theme that we see out in the field. High levels of skills required internally. Again, this is something that comes with the territory, whether it's service management or other tools that you have, specifically on-premise tools as well, but not restricted solely to on-premise, also with SaaS tools. So the concept of having to retain high levels of skills or knowledge or expertise in order to administer and manage that solution internally can be a big consideration. Generating meaningful reporting, again, a very popular reason why people are out looking for a new service desk solution, the ability to generate the information that they require. So we often have this cited to us as one of the primary reasons why somebody's looking to replace or renew their service management solution is the difficulty in actually getting meaningful management reporting back out. Cost pressures, again, this is not a new thing. This is something that's here yesterday and will still be here tomorrow, is the idea of being able to do more with less, but more specifically the ability to do more around higher value initiatives, innovation, rather than the firefighting loop that we seem to find ourselves in generally. Okay. So from an analyst perspective, what are the typical challenges that we encounter and hear about? So as the type of person who's going to be sat in there using that tool on a day-to-day basis, we often find that people feedback that the tool they're using right now, whilst powerful, whilst has all the capabilities to do all the ITIL process and so forth, typically isn't intuitive. It's possibly a Windows client. It's not the sort of native mobile friendly, web friendly application that they're typically used to using outside of work or in other areas of the business. Ability to work from anywhere. So again, the world's changed significantly since many of the sort of current crop of service management tools were written. And again, people expect to be able to do things on their mobile, any place, any time. That whole ability to work on the go is something that we need to address and we need to look at. A high degree of technical knowledge. I touched on that a moment ago, but this is effectively the guy that has to have that knowledge and maintain that knowledge. And if you're responsible for looking after the service desk, you have a great deal of responsibility around not only knowing the software, but the back end, the database, keeping all of that stuff up and running, along with the integrations and so forth. So anything that can be done to lighten that load is obviously going to be beneficial. This is a feature that we've come to realize over the last probably 5 or 6 years as a big piece that's missing from service management solutions, is the concept of communication. And for the most part, most service desk tools require you to step out of the tool in order to effectively communicate with your colleagues. Yes, whilst you can send emails directly to your end users, effective communication with your colleagues, your experts, tends to happen outside of the tool, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. And again, the whole concept of upgrades and spending your time on more important, more value initiatives is obviously key at this level too. So without stating the obvious, what have we done to do something about that? So as a company, Hornbill have been in the business now of service management for 20 years, and over the past 7-8 years we've been looking at how we can address some of those challenges and look at bringing innovation back into our marketplace. And as a result of that, we've come up with a new approach which we're calling collaborative service management. We'll be talking about that today in the demo for you. So what is collaborative service management, and how does that address some of those challenges for you? So first and foremost, this graph really is there just to represent the journey that we've set out in terms of our thinking on where we can take you as a customer. And just to start with the first point here, which is level 1, which where most of us find ourselves today on a traditional IT service management tool. And there's nothing wrong with being on a traditional service management tool. They do the job of ITIL best practice. They service your requirements from a business process perspective. The challenge we identified here was the fact that for the most part, the communication that you do as a service delivery team happens outside of that service desk tool, and hence the introduction of what we're calling collaborative service management, which is a shift and a move to marry, if you like, the best practice service management with modern collaborative technologies that allow us to communicate much more effectively in a sort of fashion that we've now come to expect and know, if you like. So the idea of collaborative service management is to bring all that dialogue, all that communication that typically happens outside of your service desk. You step out, you use your email to communicate with your colleague, your expert, to get the information back, which then you use to resolve the ticket, the challenge that you're working on. So if we can bring all that communication, all that collaboration back inside of the service desk tool and capture that knowledge, that tacit knowledge as we call it, that takes us onto a separate plane or a different level in terms of being able to reuse that information, but also more effectively deliver service. Collaborative theme carries on through rolling collaboration out to a wider group, i.e. the whole of the IT team, or indeed to all your end users, and that comes into the concept of peer-to-peer support, but not something we're specifically talking about today. So today's goal is really to educate and inform you about the benefits of collaborative ITSM over a more traditional service desk tool, and we'll be going through a demo in a moment to show you some of those features. So what does Hornbill Service Manager offer? Well, in very short order, we've basically looked at trying to address key challenges that we talked about earlier on, and some of those things are around the ability to share and collaborate around knowledge and ideas, collaborate with colleagues to boost productivity, and to be able to work from anywhere. Central to that is the concept that we have that the tools that we use inside of work should be as natural to use as the sort of application solutions that we might use outside of work in our own personal lives. But being able to do that obviously in a business context, making sure that we're always connected, up to date with the information that matters to us, at all time, in real time as well. So Hornbill Service Manager gives you the ability to connect to your service management solution from anywhere, on any device, at any time, which is obviously really handy, and the ability to obviously do that within any language as well. So notwithstanding the fact that you may be a local organisation with one geography, we're increasingly coming across organisations that deal with customers and colleagues across different geographic boundaries and across different languages. So the idea with Service Manager is to give you the capabilities to cross those boundaries, both from a language and geography perspective. So Hornbill Service Manager is a cloud-based solution. It's entirely cloud-based. We don't offer any on-premise version of that. And what that allows us to do is to actually deliver you a service. And when we say we'll take care of the rest, we really do mean that. So literally your only obligation really here is to have an internet connection and a suitable browser and to log in to your subscription. All the background stuff's taken care by Hornbill. And to that extent, we've gone a little bit further than perhaps many of our traditional competitors in the SaaS space, in that we've totally eliminated the need for upgrades. The common mindset is that SaaS means no upgrades, but for the most part, most vendors that we directly compete with and are unaware of out there in our space still require you to effectively do upgrades, even though it's a hosted or a SaaS-based system. So the difference with Hornbill is we've revisited the way we actually develop the software and adopted an approach called continuous deployment, which basically means that our developers are continuously building new features and releasing those automatically into the environment, and you as a customer get those features immediately there, checked in effectively, and you don't have to do anything. Now that might sound slightly strange, but we're perfectly comfortable with that in the consumer space, in things like apps like Google Maps or Facebook or any of those other apps that you might use on a day-to-day basis. You never stop to upgrade those apps. They seamlessly upgrade themselves. You always get new features. You learn the new features. They perhaps give you some tips and hints, and we've done the same here within Hornbill with a feature called Harry Hornbill that comes along and trains you in situ when a new feature is pushed out into the environment. So Steve will be able to show you some of that stuff, but the key aspect here is that there's never any need to stop, plan, execute, pay for an upgrade. It's a service. It just updates automatically. The upside of that is that you're always up to date with the latest features. There is no service disruption and no costs associated with getting the new features. And most importantly, any customizations that you make in the course of trying to tailor that service to your purpose by building process, adding fields to forms, whatever it might be, all of that's guaranteed to work going forward, so you never have to revisit any of that work. Last and not by any means least, we also offer and believe that there's no place for paying for an implementation in this space. Service management solutions are pretty well rounded. Our service management solution is designed to be installed and up and running very, very quickly. Being a cloud-based solution, we can provision an instance in very short order. But the key thing here is we don't believe that you should have to pay to implement your solution. So one of the things that Hornbill offer is a free implementation service to get you up and running with the Hornbill Service Manager, and we'll talk a little bit more about that at the back end as we look at some sort of next steps. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Steve, and he's going to take you through a quick presentation to show you the benefits of Hornbill Service Manager.
Fantastic, thanks Abdi. Good morning everybody. So we're just going to have a look at Service Manager from a couple of different perspectives. We'll have a look from an analyst that's using Service Manager. We'll have a look from an admin's point of view to sort of see how the back end works, but also have a look what an end user experience would be through the self-service portal. So first thing I'm going to do is actually come in as an analyst, going to come in as Graham that Abdi introduced. And I'm going to log in manually here, but we do support transparent sort of pass-through authentication, so your users can have single sign-on support, both your analysts and your end users. So we're going to come in as Graham. Log in. And when Graham logs in, Graham's actually logging into the Hornbill platform. And on the Hornbill platform is the Service Manager application. But what Graham can leverage and take advantage of are the collaborative features that the Hornbill platform provides and that are integrated tightly into the service management application. So what do we mean by that? Well, looking first and foremost in front of us, we see our newsfeed. This newsfeed looks very familiar if you're used to using Twitter or Facebook, etc. But it's really not about somewhere you're going to go to organise your social life or events or such like. It's really a place where information can be pushed to you in the context of service management about things that you're interested in. So we just have a quick look at some of the content that's on this newsfeed. Well, we're getting pushed information about new changes that are ongoing or updates to incidents that we're following. Documents that have been shared with us, problems that have been reported, conversations or dialogue that's going on relating to that particular problem that's been discussed. Why is all that information being pushed up to me? Well, for a number of different reasons. If we have a look at why I'm seeing updates to this particular incident, if I drill down into that incident, I've simply chosen to follow that particular request. So rather than getting updates to all tickets, I'm just going to get updates that I'm interested in pushed directly up to my newsfeed. Alongside that, why am I seeing updates relating to new changes that are ongoing or problems that have been identified? Well, they get pushed to me because I'm a member of a particular workspace. If we have a look at this, workspaces are really areas that you can come together not only to push out communication, but to discuss ongoing issues relating to that subject matter. So in this case, we've got a change management workspace with a number of different members. These can be private or public, and using either manual updates or automated updates using our business process engine. We've set this up so that any new changes are pushed out to that workspace. Because I'm a member, they're then wrapped up into my newsfeed because I'm interested in those. So we can use those for things like change management or for problem management, major incidents, etc., etc. But we might also want to use workspaces for other purposes. And one example of those could be providing an area or facility for your analysts to come together to discuss issues which have been reported by your customers. So what we could do here is create a first line FAQ workspace, and we could add our first line analysts or our second line team or subject matter experts all to be members of that particular workspace, and then provide, in this case, James the ability to post questions or ask questions, really sort of carrying on from what Abdi was referring to in this concept of sort of tacit knowledge. The conversations that might go on via email or might be discussed by the coffee or the water machine, getting that information captured and in here makes it reusable going forward. So in this particular example, James has posted a question. A couple of his colleagues that are in that workspace will have received a notification that there's been an update and feeling particularly helpful. They're going to have come in and hopefully provided some potential answers. We can see here as well that both Pablo and Pierre have done that in their local language and logged in as Graham in English. I can just use the translate option to see what their contributions were. Now, they both kindly provided answers for James to this particular issue. But what we can also see here is that other colleagues can validate the answers that either Pablo, Pierre, or anyone else have contributed. So when I look at this in the context of Graham, or if I'm James and I'm working on behalf of James's customer, I can see the answers that provided, and I can say, well, actually, the answer by Pablo has been validated by my colleagues, and that looks like a good answer, and I'm happy to pass that on and relay that information to my customer. Now, that's brilliant because it helps James in the here and now. But as I say, sort of moving forward, because we're capturing that information in the tool, not in email or outside sort of informal conversations, that information is reusable. So using the global search bar at the top, I can look for example, have we had any other posts relating to our VPN software? And I can do a sort of generic search. And we can see here that we've got various results back and they're relevant scored, but there's quite a few results that have come back. So I might want to narrow that down by, I only want to see that things that have been relevant in the last 6 months or been posted by our VPN expert or people that work in that particular team. Or I might just be interested in where questions have been asked in a particular workspace. So again, I can filter my results back. I can see that there's matches. And again, here we've got a different question that was posed by myself, Graham on this one. Brian's provided an answer, and Daniel, Pierre and Pablo have actually validated that. So again, it's a great way of managing that informal or tacit knowledge that's sort of already out there. Okay. But as well as that sort of informal knowledge, we absolutely recognise the need for structured knowledge. So on the Hornbill platform, there's also a document management app. on here, which is available to your analysts. And each analyst will have the ability to come in and either upload Word documents, spreadsheets, PDFs, whatever it might be, or actually use the document creator to actually create documents directly in Document Manager. Once we've got a document created or uploaded, I'll just pause there for a second. We just noticed here that Harry Hornbill's popped up to let us know about a new feature. So Abdi mentioned this concept of nano micro sort of training in the application. So as we're pushing out new features, we can let our users know that there's new features available. I can have a quick read, maybe follow a link to the wiki, maybe watch a video that's been embedded. But once I've got it, I can just say, great, thanks, and we move on. But looking at this document, it's a change management process document. I have the option as an analyst to share that with my colleagues. And I can share that document with my colleagues before we've actually published that. So what that allows me to do is give them rights and roles to actually work on that document. Between us, we can upload revisions of that document. We can keep full revision histories as we go forward, but there'll only ever be one version that's actually live and published out. Once we're happy to move that into a published state, we can publish that out to one or multiple libraries that may be more widely available to our users. And we can also attribute these documents tags, which will help with the searching and also the organizing of your documents from an analyst point of view. What we'll also notice at the bottom here is that this document has a timeline. We'll also notice as we go through the demo that request has a timeline, as does a user. These are all first-class social objects in their own rights, and as such we can collaborate on them, we can follow them, really sort of bring home those sort of consumer concepts into the workspace. So I've mentioned about sort of searching using tags and publishing these to different libraries. But what we can also do from an analyst point of view is look to address a challenge that we've seen out there, which is that one where we might have lots and lots of documents on file shares or being exchanged via email with sort of endless versions and dates and no ownership of those documents. How do I know what is the current or most up-to-date version? Who's responsible for it? Who should I talk to about updating it? Well, with Service Manager, we've looked to address that in a particular way. So sort of moving away from those sort of file structures on here, or folders as it were, and actually creating self-organizing collections. So in this way, I can simply come in and give a collection a name, and I can attribute it a tag or multiple tags so that the documents automatically drop into that collection. So any existing process documents will appear in this collection, and any process documents in the future that are attributed that tag will also drop into these collections for me. Okay. Moving on from the sort of knowledge side then, and looking specifically at Service Manager, Graham's logged in and he's got certain rights and roles. In this case, he's got the rights to look at the change calendar, manage services, look at our visual task boards, but also access the request list. When Graham looks at the request list, he's doing so in the context of those rights and roles, and also based on membership to the teams that he's a member of or services that his team supports. So if we just work across here, we can see that Graham's got the rights to work with incidents, service request problems, known errors and changes. If he didn't have the right to work with changes, for example, this icon would just disappear. Nothing would be grayed out, it just wouldn't be visible to him. So Graham could decide to look at all of his request types that belong to tickets that he owns, or as I say, he could come down and look at tickets that belong to the first line team that he's a member of, where he might want to look at all of the tickets that belong to any team that he happens to belong to, and it will filter accordingly. I can then come in here and actually use quick filter options to say, show me everything that's VPN related across the tickets and the teams that I belong to, or maybe, again in the same context, show me everything that Brian's currently responsible for, or maybe where Hannah is the customer on these particular requests. So I can very quickly and easily find that information. And that's great because it gives me a really good starting point in terms of the default views that are available. But we absolutely recognise that analysts want a bit more control over their working space, their views. So we give you very easy to build personal views. For example, here we've got things like active high priority incidents, or tickets that were closed in the last 7 days, or things that haven't been looked at for a while. And each analyst can build their own. And they do so using a very simple clause builder. They don't need to have any knowledge or understanding of the back-end database structure. They simply come in here and say, right, I want certain conditions to be met. So priority is high, the request type is instant, status is open. If I wanted to add to that and say, actually, just show me ones that have been raised against a particular service, I could come down here and just obviously select from the parameters that are available to me. So that's great, 'cause it allows me to complement the default ones with my personal views. But what I can also do is populate content from my own personal dashboard. So I can create the charts that I want to work with, and these are based off the back of these views that I've just defined. So in this context, we've got a high priority instance view, but I might want to create charts that look at this by which teams are responsible for those high priority incidents, or which individuals within those teams are actually looking after those high priority tickets. And if I wanted to create another view of that particular data set, I might come in here and say, actually, let's have a look at which of our customers have actually reported these issues, and I want it to be a high priority, by customer, and a donut chart, and I want to look at it by customer, and let's just preview that. So again, here now I can see at a glance very quickly which of my customers have reported those. I can decide if these charts are to be be visible on my dashboard, and then when I've got these views and charts defined, from my request list view, I can very quickly and easily toggle between my request list and my personal dashboard to show all the charts against all the views that I've marked as visible. Now it is my chart, my dashboard, so I can come in here, I can move things around, I can make them small, medium or large on there, and out of the box, all of these support drill down into that underlying data. So if I wanted to look at the high priority instance that the second line team are working on, simply drill into that. There's a list of those particular calls, and if I wanted to export that out for further manipulation or data manipulation, I certainly can. Okay, but we'll come back up and have a look at the other options that are available to you here. I can configure my own columns that I want to work with, the order they're going to appear in, and also any of those that I'm happy to sacrifice if I'm working on a smaller res device like a tablet. I can also set my home view as well, so when I've been sort of moving around and flicking around for a single click, I can just be taken back to my default position as required. Okay. Now at this point we sort of have a look at how do we actually raise requests into Service Manager, and there's various ways that we can do that. First and foremost, which we'll have a look at in a second, will be raising those manually when the phone rings or someone walks in. Second option is the ability to raise requests via email. So Service Manager allows you to have your support mailboxes or multiple mailboxes, if you like, sort of embedded into the platform. So I can view any emails that are dropping into those mailboxes, and I can choose to either manually create new requests or apply updates to existing requests, or using our email autoresponder facility, I can automate the logging of tickets based on conditions such as what's in the subject line or where the emails come from, or if that email contains a reference number, we can automatically append that update to the relevant ticket and let the owner or the team know that an update's been received. As well as email and manual, there's also options via the self-service portal, which we'll have a look at, but also from third-party tools using our API or XML-based APIs to fire in and use our log request APIs that are available. Okay, so just before we actually go ahead and raise a ticket in here, there's probably a couple of key concepts that underpin how Service Manager works, and how it sort of hangs together. So I've just switched to the admin tool just to give you a feel for those sort of back-end tools. So I'm just going to log in as the admin. We go down to the Service Manager configuration and under workflow. So here we have two concepts. We have business processes and progressive capture. Business processes we're probably a little bit more familiar with, which is all about the fulfillment side once a request has been raised. And in Service Manager, this is all done graphically with a simple drag and drop canvas. It allows you to build multiple stages to those fulfillment processes. In this example, I've got clarify, accept and resolve. And it's non-prescriptive in terms of how it works. So we don't dictate that you have to use service level timers, or that you have to use a fix and response timer, for example, or when they start and what constitutes them being achieved, or that you have to send confirmation emails. If you want to do all of that, that's absolutely fine. You can just build that into your process, as I say again, using our simple sort of drag and drop options and adding of human tasks, automated task decisions, etc. And those can be very simplistic, like this sort of desktop support process, or they could be much more involved, like a change process with 4 stages, where we might have looping, we might have authorizations, we might have delegate authorizations involving expiry, human tasks, automated task, checkpoints, and a variety of other options, parallel processing, etc. All of that's built in. But that's all to do with once a ticket's been logged. And the key thing here is actually, whilst we have the power and the flexibility to model your processes, all of that complexity is hidden from both the analysts and the end users that are working on those tickets behind a graphical heads-up display, which we'll show you in a couple of minutes' time. The second concept then is really about that logging experience. One of the problems and the challenges that we've seen here is that a lot of the legacy systems they present you with a big logging form with lots and lots of fields on, and in scenario 1 you have to complete fields A, B, C and D, and in scenario 2 it's a different combination of fields. And it's very difficult, and until you've spent a lot of time in there actually understanding what's required and when. The training overhead to bring somebody in off the street to actually use those types of systems is quite high and quite ongoing if you've got quite a big sort of churn rate here. Whereas in our consumer lives, if anyone's used to doing anything online, it's very simplistic and intuitive to actually book a holiday or take out insurance or whatever it might be. So what we've tried to do is actually embrace those concepts in the same way, the same way as you do when you're logging a request. So if we take that analogy and think about buying insurance online, if you've ever gone to a Go Compare or Compare the Market website, all those sites do is ask you one question at a time, and depending on your outcome, they guide you through to the next relevant question. So in the context here, it could be, well, I'm looking for car insurance. And once I've told them that, they might ask me what my car registration plate is. And off the back of that, am I looking for third-party fire and theft or fully comprehensive cover? So what we've got in front of us here is effectively the same sort of idea. Each of these blue nodes just denotes a question, and depending on the outcome or the decision from that question, we're going to branch accordingly. So if we've logged a ticket for a customer and they're reporting a desktop issue, we might want to capture the category, the priority, asset details, and select a site. However, if they were calling about a finance issue, we might have our own custom questions that we want to capture, like the reference number, the type of query, etc. And the same would be true for a new starter. We might have a whole different set of questions that we're interested in capturing. And again, this is great because I can graphically build this and, dare I say, troubleshoot it if I'm not sure where it's going, or even articulate what the flow looks like to interested parties. But that can be quite dry, so let's go and have a look at what that looks like in practice. So we'll go back to the front end here, and we're just going to go ahead and raise a new ticket. Now, I could go ahead and say, well, I pick the phone up and I'm speaking to John, and I think John's logging an incident, or I think he's logging a service request. But the reality is actually, until I start speaking to John and taking some details, I really don't know if it's an incident or a service request. So what we've tried to do to address that issue is use this progressive capture under a raise newish feature. So on here, what I'm really doing is actually understanding who I'm talking to. What are they calling about before I then make the decision as to whether it's an incident or a service request or a different ticket type. So I'm going to use myself as an example here. Steve's called in. What's Steve called about? Is it to log a new ticket, or is it to get an update on an existing ticket? Well, in either case, we can service that requirement because it's an existing one. I'll drill in and I'll give him the update. If he wants to log a new ticket, well, what's the issue that you're having there, Steve? So it could be a VPN issue, unable to connect. Get his spelling right. So it's just starting to build up some information about that. So Steve, he's got a VPN issue. Does that fall under one of the services that we provide to Steve and the services that he's subscribed to? So it could be one of these, but we'll take desktop support as the service that we're providing. Now, do I know enough at this point to actually classify this as a break fix issue or a request for something? Well, it seems logical that that's going to fall under my incident categorization, but just for argument's sake, I could have said, well, actually, he wants a change. And by choosing that, it's going to take me down whatever branch or route I've defined in that progressive capture. So in this example, it's simply going to ask me to upload any supporting documents. However, if I go back up and go down the incident route, now it's asking me for categories. It looks like a VPN related issue. Maybe it's asking for me for a priority. Maybe you want to set that as mandatory. Those options are entirely yours. What do we know about Steve? Well, okay, he's got a particular laptop that's been assigned to him, and he's got a mobile phone that's been issued. Is he having that VPN connection issue from his laptop? If he is, great, let's associate it. If it was from a different device, then we can just go off and do an asset search against an asset tag to pull that information back. Is Steve working at his normal site? Is he working from at home? Where is his asset located that he's got this issue at? Well, he's working from home, so none of these are particularly relevant, so we just go ahead and we'll log this in. What we'll notice on the right-hand side here, though, is that as we step through those questions, it's all just being validated. I can jump back up to any question at any point that I need to. On this occasion, I'm just going to go ahead and press finish. On doing so, it will validate that ticket's been raised. We can prefix the tickets with whatever we need. We can see that it's been routed to a particular team already, and that's been driven by the underlying business process that's been picked up. So when we looked at that desktop support process before, we had our 3 stages, and here this is just represented with a heads-up display. We can also see a list of checkpoints for each stage, which denote which actions have been completed. So an email's been sent, it's been assigned to a team, the priority was set, we picked that up from progressive capture, but it's waiting for someone in the team to take ownership. And in doing so, it's taken me in context on the toolbar across the middle to actually go ahead and perform that action. So I'm going to go in as Graham and I'm going to take ownership of that ticket. Now on doing so, the process moves on and it's actually created an activity for an individual, a role, etc. to go ahead and look into this particular issue. And that's great because we can automate a lot of the process and keep this moving forward. There are a lot of manual things that you might want to do when working on tickets. We could simply put updates in and make them customer or team facing and drop those into the timeline for the request. We might also want to cut and paste screenshots in, so that could be the error, for example. So I'm just going to go ahead and update that. And again, as I put that in, everything just appears in line in the timeline for me. And it's not just about screenshots or content that way. We might want to share sort of multimedia or videos and share those with our customers. So we could, if we wanted to, create custom buttons on our forms, and we might want to look at in YouTube or Google for VPN issues by passing through the summary attribute. And going in there, we can see a number of different videos that may or may not help us here. Now, we're not going to play the video there, but if we go in, and we'll just go ahead and pick up that URL, drop that back in, put that in the box there. We'll notice that that video then is available, shared, and in line and can be viewed by our customer on self-service should we want them to review that to see if that helps fix their issue. Not suggesting you're going to fix all your issues that way, but it's certainly a good way to work. Other options you've got is scheduling callbacks, adding attachments by either dragging and dropping them in, one or multiple. You can also search for other tickets that may help you resolve your issue. So in this case, I might look for other VPN-related issues or tickets that are out there. 24 have come back. That's far too many for me to sort of look through. So let's narrow that down and just have a look at any problem records that are out there that are still open, where there might be a workaround available. You can see here there's a possible match. I can drill down, have a look at that particular problem. Now, if I choose to link this particular problem to my incident, a couple of things are going to happen. First and foremost, we're going to see a new linked request section appear on the form, and we're going to possibly see a solution or green tick available, question mark, if there's a solution available to me. The reason for doing that is we respect the real estate that's available on these forms. So if we don't have any linked requests, there's no reason to have a redundant section. And the same is true if we're talking about attachments, assets, etc., etc. So we've got our linked request, we've formed our relationship there, and we have, by chance, got a solution or a workaround that's been made available from the problem. And myself as the incident owner, I can come in, I can look at that workaround information to decide whether that actually solves my customer issue, and I can accept or reject that particular solution. Other options you've got is escalation, changing customer, etc., etc. But just coming right back to the top, if I'm working on this ticket, I'm hopefully doing that to try and resolve the issue. If I can't resolve the issue myself, what do I traditionally do? I may assign this ticket away, and that's still valid, so I could say, well, I want to assign it away to another team and individual to look at. Or I might formally create an activity or a task to bring someone into the equation and get them to help out and put a due date on it, etc., etc. But what we can also do is complement those two more traditional approach by actually more informally adding in our subject matter experts, saying, Rosemary, the change manager, I want to sort of add you to this particular ticket. Now, Rosemary might not normally have the rights to look at my Teams calls or to look at incidents at all, but by adding her here, we can actually elevate her rights for this particular request. We can also come in and we can mention Rosemary. We can say, Rosemary, can you take a look, at this? And what we can do here, by mentioning Rosemary, we can send out a targeted communication, which Rosemary can pick up on her desktop, through her web browser, or through her native iOS or Android app, which are available to the analysts. And she can pick it up, she can come back into the ticket and obviously provide some assistance. But just sort of jumping this forward, we did have a task that was created off the back of this for someone to look into this particular issue. And I'm going to go ahead in here and I'm going to say cleared issue, now able to connect. On here, record any time that was spent and choose one of the definable outcomes that are available. So on doing so, and by completing this task, a number of things have happened. My process has moved to the end, it stopped the timer, it sent a confirmation email off to the customer and moved the ticket into a resolved state. So all of this type of activity can be driven through the business process tool if required that supports the tickets that you're working on. Now I'm just going to come back here and go to my link request because I might actually want to raise a problem or a change off the back of this particular incident. Step through the different progressive capture questions, customizable questions that you want to ask. So what type of change, who's impacted, what's the risk that's on here. We might also want to categorize that differently, add additional assets if we wanted to. We can add in whatever we need on there, and we just go ahead and finish that. And on doing so, we move into a change process. And we can see here that the look and feel, the familiarity is consistent between the different ticket types. The bits that are really different will be the heads-up display representing any supporting business process, and maybe the fact that you've come in and customized and added fields that are specific to different ticket types or services that you offer. Now, I'm not going to step through each of the steps here. I just want to go ahead and get to a particular point. So we'll take ownership. We'll complete a couple of activities like validating this change. Yeah, it looks valid for the team to spend time on. We might have impact assessments to do. This might be an example where you might have parallel processing that you want to invoke the same task for multiple people or multiple teams. So I'm going to go in here and say, actually, it looks like quite a low impact in my opinion. And what that's then done is move us on past an optional backout point to the approval stage, and our approvers have been loaded in here. Each of those approvers can then get sent a notification. Again, they can complete that authorization through the web interface or through the mobile native mobile apps. But what's also available then, if we drop down to our boards view, is a different view on our change process or a procurement process on here. So I, as the change manager, might want to create a visual task board that represents the lifecycle statuses of my change process. And here we can see that we've got incoming, assessed with CAB and approved. Now, automatically using the business process tool, those changes will appear on these particular boards, and they'll make their way automatically across the boards through the channels so that I, at any point, have a real-time view of where all of my changes are, the status they're in at any given time, helicopter view if you like, and I can drill down and look at, for example, all the changes that Rosemary is responsible for, or the team as a whole. And we can see here that 172 that we were working on has made its way through to with CAB. But again, it's not just change. This could be used from an incident management point of view in terms of a breach board and have things populated when they're going to breach in the next 2 hours or half an hour. Or it could be used, as I say, for maybe procurement to look at procurement requests that have been received or in progress or have been delivered. But if we come back to the change management one and we drill back into our change that we were working on, I happen to be a member of the CAB on here, so I'm going to go ahead and say proceed, and I'm going to move this one forward. On doing so, it takes us through and we can schedule, etc., and we can implement. So I'm not going to take those steps in, but I am going to come back up to our newsfeed where we started with this, and we can now see here that a post has now been made into the change management workspace, letting the change management stakeholders or members know that this particular change has got to a particular point in its lifecycle status. So again, keeping other people informed of what's happening across the board without them having to follow tickets individually. And again, they'll pick that up on the web client. They can pick that up through the native iOS or Android apps. Okay. So just moving on, looking at a couple of the other components that are there for you. Managing assets, so importing assets from SCCM using a scheduled import, or importing these via CSVs, that is all available. Breaking these down into the different classes that you work with, the different types that you want to define, the different attributes you want to use against the different assets, and then sort of looking at those assets specifically. So if we have an example of an asset here, we've got information, or another little update from Harry here about a new feature about asset history. We'll have a look at that in a second. Great. We can see all of the attributes I've decided to make visible for this asset type. So all the classic stuff about ownership, we might have some information about costs and warranties, where it's located, but we also might have information relating to, its IP address, computer information, whatever you want to define against your assets. We can also attach attachments to each asset. We can see where this asset is linked to requests or where it's linked to other assets. And as Harry told us at the top here, we can also look at a full audit trail of any changes that are made against the asset attributes, who made them, when they made them, what they changed them from, and what they were changed to, which is searchable as well in that regard. So I can just look for changes to that particular aspect. So that's all available to us. Okay, just moving on and looking at time, I just want to switch and now have a look at what's an end user sort of view on Service Manager. So we'll go to our service portal and we'll go back to log in on here. So a couple of comments and observations to make for you here is I can brand and customize the look and feel of the service portal. I can do that all through the admin tool without the need for any coding. The self-service portal also supports single sign-on and is also available in any language if you've got a need to support users in multiple languages. Just by way of an example, this is one of our customers at the moment that has customized their self-service portal with their branding and color schemes Again, as I say, all through the admin tool without any need for any coding. But I'm just going to log in manually because this is my demo system and just give you a feel for what the end user's experience might look like. So in this example, I'm logged in as Steve, and Steve is subscribed to a variety of services that the company provides. And the views I've got here really are, what are all the services that I've consumed that are available to me? I can drill into any of those and make those favorites, and by doing so, they will appear in my favorites list. I can look at any of my services where I've got active requests. I can look at any of the services that have been provided to me that are currently impacted or experiencing issues. If I go back to my desktop support queue, I can see any of my existing tickets that are outstanding, and I can also look at any FAQs or knowledge that's been provided against that service that might help me before I raise a request. We'll come back to that in a second. If we have a look at an existing ticket, from an end user's point of view, you can choose whether you want to make the heads-up display visible to them. You can choose whether you want that to be just the headlines or all the drill-down checkpoints, or whether it's hidden entirely. This particular request is in a resolve state, so we can ask our users to provide feedback and ratings and let us know whether the resolution worked. And they've also got access to all the customer-facing updates, and from here they can watch their videos in line, they can take it out to YouTube, they can see all the images that have been pasted without having to open up individual updates. And what you can see here is that they can actually collaborate directly with the analysts or the team on each individual update. So here we can put comments against each post rather than just appending them to the bottom of the update list, which is really useful when you're trying to find information. But if we come back up and actually have a look at, well, I wanted to raise a new request, I've come here, I get desktop support. Is there any information or content that's going to help me solve the issue myself before I have to raise something? Well, here we can publish out FAQs, and those FAQs can combine text, they can have embedded videos, they can be hyperlinks that take you off to external sources or maybe off to SharePoint content that you have created. And we can also see where they've been marked as useful, how many people have viewed them, etc. Again, it doesn't just have to be videos, it could be articles with multiple updates, multiple images in there. So how do I create an email signatory? Lots of different embedded images that are really useful. So in the scenario, unfortunately, where they can't help themselves, we haven't pushed that information out, I can go ahead and I can raise a request. In the same way that the analyst experience is driven, I've just simply guided through progressive capture. So let's put on here, the word, printing issue, able to print, and we go and we step through and we look at the categories that are relevant. I could choose the relevant one if it's mandatory, custom fields, it's only me that's affected by this. Can you contact me by phone against this one? I am working at my normal office. It is an issue from my laptop. No supporting documentation to upload at that point, so I just go ahead and click submit. It's obviously entirely up to you how many questions you ask on there, but we can see that the experience is nice and concise and slick, and then once it's logged, the user has complete visibility of where that then sits in the process, what steps or stages need to be gone through. We can see it's been assigned and just waiting for someone to pick that up. Okay. So the last thing I just want to touch on before I hand back to Abdi is if we've gone to the effort of creating these services and raising tickets and logging them and providing a facility for the user to go into, it's also important that we can get some metrics and analytics out of the back. So we've already looked at the front end personal dashboards and charts where each analyst can actually create their own content without the need for any sort of back end experience or knowledge. But I could also come in here and create, I suppose, what we call traditional style reports. This might be where I go in and I create a report using a SQL designer, or I might create a report using an entity, which might be something like an incident or request where all the attributes for that entity are already known to me. But that affords me the ability to go in and join tables and sort and filter, choose publishing options if I want it as a pie chart and I want it sorted by a particular type and limit the graph to a certain amount. And then I can go in and I can export this out in a couple of different formats. I can take this out and view it by the browser, so I can look at my charts with all the data below that. Or if it's important for me to get that data out to manipulate it further, again, I can export that to CSV in the same way that we exported the request list data out as well. So all that information is out there for me to manipulate as I need to. Let's not save that. So to support that, we then also have an optional analytics package that allows me to create dashboards and widgets, but also to create trending information off the back of a trending engine that's provided. So in here, I can create my own measures. I can set things like request logged per day, per month, or the average of this or percentage of that. And I can set targets for each of those measures, and I can then see how I'm performing against that target over the sample intervals that I'm interested in. So whether that's daily, weekly, monthly, I can see how I'm performing against the target and how I'm trending. So I may well still be all green, but if it's trending up or down, that might be a warning sign for me. And I can use those measures to create content for my dashboards. So I can create scorecards with multiple measures. I can have count lists, charts, scorecards, a whole variety of content. I can then wrap those up into dashboards or promote those onto dashboards, make those dashboards role-based, and obviously allow those dashboards to be wall-boarded or put onto a big plasma screen. Or if I've got a lot of data, what I might choose to do is actually daisy chain multiple dashboards together in the form of a slideshow, so that I can actually publish out a lot of content in the same go and have that transitioning through. So what I've just got here is an example of a couple of dashboards that we've chained together, just to give you a feel for the type of dashboard content and output that you might be able to, or might be interested in getting using Service Manager. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to just pass you back to Abdi just for some.
Excellent. Thanks, Steve. So we have a few questions that have come in. We'll get to those in a moment, but just to wrap up here very quickly in terms of recapping in regards to the couple of roles that we've talked about earlier on. So how does Hornbill help or make Graham's life easier? So just to skip through these slides, I think you'll agree that what Steve showed you there today is a modern, powerful, intuitive solution that delivers all the ITSM capability that Graham as an analyst would require. I think you also agree that what Steve showed you there is a very easy way to both connect with and collaborate with subject matter experts to get that information in real time and to do that in the context of the actual tickets and the service management tool rather than stepping outside of the solution. Much more readily resolve complex issues just because you can connect much more readily and much more easily across global barriers as well. And again, something we specifically haven't showed you today, but I've talked about is the concept of the solution always being up to date through the continuous deployment, which means that there's no downtime spent trying to keep your service desk patched up to date, up and running. That's our problem as Hornbill, providing you that service so you have 100% focus on sorting your customers' issues out. How does Hornbill make Sonia's life easier as the service delivery or service desk manager? Well, I'm sure you'll agree from what Steve showed you there that being able to quickly pull information together as a team means that you're going to much more readily resolve issues in a timely fashion and be better informed. But also that idea of being able to capture that knowledge and reuse that tacit knowledge means that you'll forever have that information to hand and it's easily searchable. Being able to pull together the best possible team, again, being able to collaborate much more readily means you don't have to have everyone sat in the same location, which makes that easier. We talked about business process and the need to have business processes, and oftentimes business processes can be complex, but being able to shield that complexity from your analysts and from your end users is really important, whilst still allowing them to see clearly what they have to do, when they have to do it, and making sure that that happens in a timely fashion. Hornbill Service Manager helps you to drive all of that and orchestrate that. We talked about the need to be able to generate meaningful management reporting and as a challenge, and one of the main reasons that people do end up looking to replace a service desk. This is clearly addressed here with Service Manager being able to provide you that trending data, being able to present that in a really nice, clear, concise fashion through the dashboards that Steve just finished up on. So I guess that's really where we wanted to get to in terms of giving you visibility of Service Manager. Perhaps just to wrap up, I'll give you some idea of costs and what happens next if you did want to progress and try and find out a little bit more. So in terms of costs, it's a very simple structure. As I suggested earlier on, it's a cloud-based service, and so we have a very simple pricing model that's based around a scalable model which allows small, medium and large teams to come on board. It's a simple per user per month pricing model which is based around your analysts, so it's simple count of how many people provide support. It really doesn't matter how many people you end up supporting at the other end of the phone, that they're unlimited and free in terms of cost. So it starts at £42.50 per user per month, but we do offer very nice volume breaks, if you like, so the price actually falls for every single additional user you add over and above the minimum 10 subscriptions that starts the ball rolling for you. So if you do want an idea of cost, please let us know and we'd be happy to provide a quote for you based on our pricing calculator. One key thing that we would like to draw your attention to is the concept of price for life. So one of the things that we've taken a decision on as a company is the idea of rewarding our customers with loyalty, and one of the things that we've taken a very keen interest in is the idea of making sure that our customers are protected against any future increases in costs. So this price for life concept is written into our contracts, and what it basically means is that at the moment you subscribe to our service, whatever subscriptions you take, we will then lock in your price plan at that point. So in the future, should we increase the price of any of the subscriptions that you're taking from us, you're actually insulated against that. And that's quite contrary to a lot of pretty much all of our competitors in the respect that most of them bring you on at one price, and they've built into their contracts to facilitate them to increase the cost over time. So we've taken that away. We offer you that as a guarantee, and we go one step further in that if we actually get to a point where through economies of scale we can actually offer our service for less, you have the option to, under our contract, to request to move to the cheaper price as well. So that's just a really nice feature that we have within our contracts, and just worth highlighting there for you. So what happens next? I talked earlier on about the concept of free implementation. Well, one of the things that we would urge you to do is to put us to the test, and in doing that, what we suggest, what we offer, is that we're happy to give you our solution for free and spin up an instance, implement it for free, and to give you a chance to really get to understand how we work as an organization, and also how the solution would fit your requirements, with your data in there integrated into your environment. And at the end of that 30-day period, we'd actually then ask you to make a decision if you want to carry on and subscribe, or whether you're happy to walk away. But regardless, we'll set the solution up for free as part of that process. So what can you expect during the 30-day trial period other than access to the system? Well, we'll give you access to one of our product specialists who will work with you in the following areas to get the thing set up for you. So first and foremost, we'd look to integrate to your email system, so you can get inbound and outbound emails going into the solution. We'd help you tie in with your corporate directory service, and we use a protocol called SAML, which Steve mentioned earlier on, which allows you then to provide single sign-on to the system, and auto provisioning of your user data. So that would be taken care of. Help you to import any additional user data into the system that you might require. Assistance with importing other static data, things like lists of mobile phone assets, that kind of stuff. Working with you to integrate to things like SCCM if you needed to bring through asset data from an asset discovery tool, for example. We'd also help with deploying other aspects of the Hornbill solution that you look to run with, customizing the solution, getting it set up, things like setting up SLAs, for example, or dashboards, and then most importantly, help you with business flow and workflow and configuring things such as a problem or a change or an incident process that you might need to see up and running. So all of that's incorporated within that free 30-day trial period, and as it says up here, if you're happy at the end of that period, we ask you to either accept or reject the solution. If you reject it, that's fine by us, we will have done all that work. But if you accept the solution, obviously you then start to subscribe, and we take you on from there as a customer. Okay, so that's an offer that we put out to you as a prospective customer, or even an existing Hornbill customer. We'll take you through the same process of giving you the chance to see the solution up and running before you have to commit to taking it on and starting to pay for it. So with that said, I'm going to say thanks for your time today. We have got a few questions, so let's see if we can take those now, and we will do our best to answer those for you.
Great, thanks Abdi. So first question that came up here, probably one for me actually, is updates to requests, can they be marked as, well, they wouldn't want the customer to see that and just the support team? Absolutely. Each post or update that you apply to the tickets, you can mark as being visible to the team only or customer only, as entirely to you.
Excellent.
Another one which is looks like relating to customers raising requests through the self-service portal, with some guidance on the questions, present them so they gather the information that's needed, e.g. location, asset ID, etc. Absolutely. So using that progressive capture, we actually ship with a number of default questions or forms, if you like, and you may have seen some examples with the asset ones and the site ones, etc. But you've also got the ability to create your own custom questions and forms, so you can ask them any of that information in whatever order with whatever branching you need off the back of that.
Excellent. Okay.
There's another one that's just on here, which is regarding our cloud services. So just wondering where our data centers are actually located.
Sure. So in very simple terms, we have a US set of data centers, and we have some European data centers available at present. So if you are subscribing to the EU side of things, then our data centers are actually located in the UK, both the primary and the secondary one. But obviously, if you choose to subscribe in the US, then your data center will be in the US. So for the purposes, typically that question comes up as a result of concerns around data security and so forth. So if you're subscribed in the UK, then that your data stays within the EU geography.
Okay, there's one last question that we've got on here, which is relating to browser support. So are all browsers supported?
Sure. So again, you can jump in here, Steve, if you want, but pretty much we support any browser that's HTML5 compliant. So that typically means IE 10/11 latest, and all the latest versions of Chrome, Firefox, and Safari. So
absolutely. And just to add to that, yeah, we keep that updated on our wiki, so you can always keep up to date with what's going. Excellent, fantastic.
So I don't think we had too many more questions, but if you do have any other questions, feel free to get in touch. I want to thank you personally for your time today, and I'll hand over to Tatiana just to wrap up.
Great, perfect. Thank you, DNC, for the presentation and demo. I hope everyone found it very interesting. As Abdi mentioned, please do get in touch with us if you have any more questions or you would like to find out more. You can also visit our website and our resource center to find out more about product and collaborative ITSM through the URL displayed on your screen at the moment. So from all of us here, wishing you a great day, and thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.